Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here, live from the WHP 580 studios. And we will not be doing the bonus hour today, so get your calls in between 2 and 3, and I'll answer them here on the air. 540-0580, 540-0580. Again, we will not be doing the bonus hour. I need to go to a picnic. I got to put some macaroni and cheese in the oven. And I got to slice up some tomatoes and cucumbers for a salad. So that's why we're not doing the bonus hour. I can't lie. It's just that simple. 540-0580. Call in with your legal questions. And what's in the news right now? Well, Arizona, the law in Arizona was partially struck down preemptively before it went into force by a federal judge. Some ado's been made out that was a Clinton appointee. I always find that fascinating because I don't think the president that appoints a federal judge has a lot to do with what they do, because otherwise the Supreme Court justices wouldn't always be making the parties that appointed them angry with their decisions. Once you're appointed to the bench for life, you pretty much do whatever you want, and you don't have to really make anybody happy at that point. So my thought on the matter is, who cares who appointed that judge? Whether you agree with the decision or disagree with the decision is certainly interesting. There's an argument to be made that the states can't meddle in things that have an international or national implication. The flip side is we are a country where we supposedly reserved a lot of rights to the states, and best I can tell, that doesn't always seem to be the case. In fact, the 10th Amendment has been effectively gutted by our current Supreme Court, including many of the Republicans thereon, including Chief Justice John Roberts, who recently wrote an opinion which basically says the Congress can do whatever it wants to do because it has an inherent clause in the Constitution that lets it do what it wants to do, and that's how health care will be found to be legal later. And again, that was by a Republican appointee. So, like I said, I don't really care which political affiliation the judges have. It's just always interesting to see what decisions they do reach. Jeremy, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, Jeremy?
Back in September, so it was almost a year ago, I ran a stop sign on a road I had never been on before. It was completely covered up by trees. And I got 3 points on my record for the stop sign violation. I'm wondering, is there anything I can do because the stop sign was totally covered up with bushes?
Well, did you plead guilty?
No, I pleaded not guilty, and I fought it in court, but the judge and the cop are, both on the same side. And
wow, you noticed that. Took a lawyer with you?
No.
Okay. Has it been less than 30 days since you were convicted?
It's been a long time, over 30 days.
You only have 30 days to appeal that decision to the Court of Common Pleas, where you get a whole new hearing in front of a different judge.
Okay.
And you only had 30 days to do that. So, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do except wait for those points to go away, but you had a great defense. What you should have done, and maybe you did go out and take pictures.
Yeah, I did. I took a video of it to the courtroom.
Yeah.
And the cop was telling me it was pointless because of the camera angle and zooming, and you couldn't tell. And it was a great video. I still have it, but
yeah,
they just wanted my money. They just wanted to see me get slammed.
And you know what? And I'm not going to bust on you too much, but I'm going to say this. Every time you have a traffic ticket and you think you're going to go in there and represent yourself and that the court's just going to, give you a fair hearing and everything's going to be dismissed, first of all, there's a lot of procedural rules. Second of all, the police officer, he goes to court all the time. You don't. So let's assume for the minute that the judge is completely neutral, you're getting your fair hearing. You still don't have fair footing because that's not your domain. I don't crawl. My brother was making a big deal one day about how come I didn't change my own oil? How come I took the car to the shop? And I'm trying to explain to my brother, I don't work on cars. He does. And it's really simple for him to do something like that. With me, I probably wouldn't tighten something back up, or I wouldn't put the oil filter on the right way, and then I'd destroy my whole engine, right? So my point is, don't go into that courtroom without a lawyer because you're not on equal footing with the police officer, okay? That's assuming that the entire courtroom's going to run fairly. There has been criticisms over the years that sometimes magistrates won't throw out tickets because they don't want to offend the local police force. I don't see that happen very often in my practice, but if that's what happened, that's why you have that automatic right of appeal to the Court of Common Pleas. And again, that's where you'd take a lawyer and present it. So my answer for you is there's not much you can do. Hindsight's 20/20, obviously. Next time, make the video, but get somebody in the courtroom to present it for you and make sure all your legal options are being fully exercised.
Right, okay.
Did the officer offer you 3111, by the way?
He didn't offer me anything. It's the Northern Regional Police, and they're a bunch of criminals. I hope everyone goes up there and, fights them. Don't just give in.
Well, and I hope everybody fights their tickets. And let me tell you something. For what you save on auto insurance and potential license suspensions and all those, to pay a lawyer anywhere from $300 to $500 to fight a traffic ticket is probably not unreasonable in this day and age.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that now. Before I didn't collect any, data before I went in. I just went for it. So that wasn't a wise decision on my part.
All right, brother. Well, if you ever get another one, you know where to find me.
All right, will do. Thanks a lot.
All right, bye. 540-0580. Fight them early, fight them often. Paul, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Paul.
Carl, when can I see you person to person?
Well, you just have to call the office, 241-6070, and Tammy or Linda will make an appointment.
All right, I got a situation similar to what the last caller had.
Okay.
It's not I don't know what it is. I never seen anything like it in my life. Of course, I've only been driving for 60 years. So. I thought I got to see somebody about this because it sure ain't right.
Well, Paul, I'd be happy to represent. It sounds like you got a traffic problem. I mean, if you want to tell us about it on the air, that's great. But why don't you, if you want to come see me, my office number is 241-6070.
Okay.
All right?
I'll give you a call.
All right, brother.
Bye.
Thanks. Well, Paul didn't want to share with everybody, but that's okay. Carl Rominger here on WHP 580. I'm going to take Tim now. And, of course, our talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, Tim?
I got a speeding ticket in Upper Island Township on 15. They told me I was doing 71 and a 55, but here the officer gives me a ticket for not obeying traffic devices. And I'm just wondering, how...
He's doing you a favor.
Yeah.
That one doesn't show on your driver's record. Doesn't give you any points.
I understand that, but, I mean, they're using that stopwatch method. Can you argue that?
You can certainly still fight it. You can certainly still fight it, but here's the story. A lot of great lawyers that I know, including a very famous traffic lawyer, John Manka, I think was quoted once as saying that he won't even take a 3111 for a client who wants to fight it because basically since there's no consequence to you besides the fine, and the police officer obviously didn't feel particularly aggrieved by what you did. They tried to help you out on the front end. We would never counsel you to fight that unless you were an out-of-state truck driver and the 3111 would affect your license because there are a few states where the 3111 is viewed differently and there's a better Pennsylvania offense for some out-of-state CDL drivers.
Yeah, excessive speeding, right. Yeah, I understand that. I was just wondering if they were trying to CYA or whether they actually had a case.
I think he was just cutting your brake on the front end, quite frankly.
Oh, I appreciate that.
There are a lot of nice people out there that are police officers that would do that. Hey, I got to go to break. I'll talk to you later. Take care, Tim. 540-0580. I'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Hey, Michael Parks, are you out at Sprint somewhere?
You bet I am, Carl. You a high-tech geek like me?
I got a little fancy phone here. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you what, you would love this place, Sprint. I came over here, and I was checking out some of the great new phones they have out. I don't know if you've seen the new HTC Evo. This thing is so cool, and if you've ever looked and you heard about, the iPhone, you've got to check out this thing because it is absolutely amazing, incredible. The screen is huge, and plus you're getting that Sprint 4G network, which makes things fly. And one of the things that I was talking to the guys over here, and they're really busy this afternoon, because at Sprint, you can get unlimited mobile-to-mobile on any network, unlimited texting, and unlimited data for just $69.99 a month. And you can also stop by here. We mentioned about the 4G phones that they have here, the Evo. There's BlackBerries, there's smartphones, there's regular phones, basic phones, messaging phones for the love of texting, and so much more. And plus, they have some great deals going on over here with headsets and cases and so much more. It's a great place to be. Plus, we're going to be here till 4 o'clock. You can register to win tickets to see Daughtry. I think that's next Friday. We've got some WHP goodies. Aaron stashed the place. We got pens, candy, stickers, and so much more. So stop by and see us. We are at the Sprint Store, Walnut Street, right down from Pedal Pusher across from Doron Paints. We'll talk to you in a bit. Now back to the man, Carl, on WHP 580.
Hey, Michael, thank you very much. By the way, I've been using those HTC products for a long time, which basically just stands for High Tech Corporation, I think. But their stuff's pretty smooth, brother.
All right, I'll check them out for you.
All right, bye. Oh, that was Michael Parks there, live at Sprint. Go down and check him out. 540-0580, 540-0580. Call him with your legal questions. I guess well, that was our live interlude there. We did have one more, public service announcement that we were supposed to play. I don't know if Shane's going to play it or not. Let's see here, Shane. Let's see if you can play that thing. Is it working, Shane? I can't hear it. I don't know. All right, I guess it's not going to work. So, Kelly, you're on WHP 580.
Carl?
Yes.
Hi, Carl. I had a question about living wills.
Yes.
My gram had a stroke in February, and she had a living will for years that stated she didn't want to be on any kind of life support system. We had to take the tubes out at like 14 days, I guess, legally, because it would start to, I guess, erode her throat and stuff like that. So the hospital told us that we needed to give her a peg tube. Now it's the end of July. She can't walk. She can't talk. She's past the point where any rehabilitation would help her at this point. So do we have any legal, like basically we've been told that we can't legally stop feeding her. I mean, it sounds horrible, but isn't that what a living will is for?
Yeah, absolutely. And she didn't have a living will?
No, she did.
She did?
Yeah, so her mom went through the same thing, so she did that when her mom was going through it.
And the living will specifies that she wants these things withheld.
Yes.
Huh. Well, it doesn't sound right to me. I think that the hospital has to honor your living will. Now, is there a religious-based hospital here that maybe doesn't want to honor that? Or? Well,
she went from hospital to a nursing home. Now she's in a different nursing home, and it really has to do with the doctor that we're dealing with.
Okay.
He's been the doctor since she was in the hospital, so I guess we're talking about switching doctors, and it looks like it's moving more toward that direction, but it's been so long, and for her to not make any recovery, it feels like we are just, what's the point of having it if we can't legally do anything about it?
And of course, he's got to make a certain threshold determination that she's basically at the point of no return, and that may be what's holding it up at this point. So your legal remedy would be to get a different medical diagnosis. And, of course, some people would say, well, how's that possible? Well, I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, but there's a reason that there's second opinions out there. Sure. Also, the doctor may have a bias in the case. But the flip side is, I don't know. I don't know what her mental state is or where it really sits, because remember, in Pennsylvania, we don't allow euthanasia, which your other option, I guess, then is to go to Oregon or one of those states where even without that medical determination, it would be her choice, but she's probably not in a condition to make that kind of decision at this point.
No, we had called in, I guess he had authorized hospice to come in, and then he reversed that decision because he made a joke and she smiled at him.
Yeah.
But really, other than that, I mean, she went from communicating to not communicating, and it's just heartbreaking that this is her wish, that she didn't want to have to go through this, and it just feels like we're in a bind right now that we can't find anyone that's actually going to help us enforce what
you may need a different doctor. And I can tell you, again, talk line number's 540-0580. I can tell you, also this interpretation of, they smiled at a joke, they laughed at this kind of thing. I mean, Terry Schiavo down in Florida, her parents for years were maintaining that she was responsive to them. And, of course, after she passed and they did the autopsy, they determined that in fact was impossible.
Yeah.
So, people see what they want to see. I mean, some people think that their pets can do all kinds of great mental calculations, too. So my point being is his view sounds kind of silly in a way. It doesn't sound like a medical opinion. But the flip side is he's the doctor. I'm not. So you'd have to get another doctor in. And then the judge would decide which doctor was more right.
Okay. Yeah, it's just frustrating because there's a reason why she did what she did, and now we're all kind of taking the steps to make our own living wills. And
well, you're also in a gray area, though, because remember, your living will only kicks in when you get to a certain state. We have this other area where if you are not quite far enough gone, so to speak, but maybe even in great pain or discomfort and would want these things withheld, we don't have a remedy in Pennsylvania.
Okay. All right. Well,
All right.
I guess we'll switch doctors and go from there.
And Kelly, just a complete side note, which just is, the medical definition of death has changed over the years, and it's interesting because back before you could transplant organs, it was the stopping of the heart that they considered death. And then, of course, as medicine got better and better, and lots of people were on respirators, and their hearts are surviving, and they're living for a long period of time, somebody notices that, maybe we should pay attention to the brain function more. And then when organ transplants started wholesale and they realized that people in a, quote, permanent vegetative state would be a great place to harvest organs, the medical establishment changed the definition of death, and you no longer had to have a cardiovascular death in order to get there, which allows for organ transplants.
Okay.
And so I don't know where the definition of death will next be defined, but as it is right now, I don't think medically that's the problem. The doctor's not putting her far enough across the line to allow for the withholding of services.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
No problem. If you need anything else, let me know. And, of course, you can get through to me through weekendappointment.com as well.
Okay. Thanks,
Thanks,
Carl.
Kelly.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's tough. And I always tell people living wills are great to have. There's just no guarantee they're going to be honored all the time. And that's part of the problem. 540-0580. And, of course, then you got euthanasia. And, of course, I'm sure some people are in favor of that. Some people aren't. Jim, you're on WHP 580.
Hey, Carl. I got a medical question, too. It's about the records. Do those records belong to me, or do they belong to the doctor? These are veterinarian records.
Okay.
I just thought I'd ask you the question right now.
Yeah, I'm laughing because you threw it at the end. They're veterinary records. The short answer is you obviously have a right to your own medical records. And if you've retained a vet to do work for you, those records are animal, I don't want to analogize, but as a lawyer, my first thought would be a vet's records are akin to a mechanic's records. Because they're not really medical records like a person's medical records. You have an absolute right to get your own medical records. The doctor, on the other hand, has a right to keep a copy of those medical records, too, so that someday when you claim that he or she committed malpractice, they can look at their records and say, no, I didn't, here's why. So they have a retention policy of their own, but you should be able to get your own set and take them anywhere you need. As to vet records, though, I don't know the answer to that because I understand the sentimental attachments many of us have to our animals. I also know, though, that I don't think lawfully there's any special status for veterinary records that I'm aware of. The flip side is I guess that might be something on the upfront side, whether or not you're entitled to a copy. Is the vet not wanting to give them to you?
Well, they wanted to charge $0.25 for every page. It was we're talking 9 years.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And guess what? There happens to be a limit. They can charge you for your own medical records, by the way, to copy them. But there's a limit on those fees that were statutorily set. So it's relatively inexpensive to get your medical records versus what it used to be. And the joke was that the doctors were making money off the lawyers. So every time we request 10 medical record pages, we get a bill for $150. After all, the lawyers are just full of money. Just ask the doctors, and of course, the doctors are full of money. Just ask the lawyers. Each side's sure the other guys do better. But my point is, yeah, there's a protection. If it was a human medical record, there would be a cap on what they could charge you per page. A veterinary record, I don't think there is such a cap. And of course, 25 cents a page. I mean, you got 100 pages or 1,000 pages. I don't know, but
well, it's 3 animals, and it's the oldest one's 9, the next one's 8 years. The next one's like 5. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of pages in there.
Yeah, and of course, you got to remember it takes time to copy them, etc. So from the vet standpoint, they want to discourage you from doing that.
So they have a right to keep a copy of that.
They do have a right to keep a copy.
I didn't know that.
I would, listen. It's like a legal file. When a client changes lawyers or they want their file back, I'm going to retain certain things, or at least copies of certain things. Sure. For a period of time. And, of course, in my office, we digitize everything. So I have PDFs of everything so that if someday you sued me and said, hey, Carl, you should have pursued this, and I'm like, here's the letter where I said to you that you should pursue this, and here's your response, and here's where you signed and said, Carl, I understand that I should be pursuing this, but I don't want my wife's pension.
Right.
All right, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, sometimes you just don't know. I mean, I don't know. Is it like a car? Or it's like a person. It's a dog, right? A cat. Dan, you're on WHP 580.
Hello.
Hi, Dan.
Question about I have a piece of property, and I'm together with another person, and wanting to buy the other out. She wants to buy me out, and I guess wondering what can I expect in a buyout? Like, I mean, we're just trying to figure out if we figure out the appraisal amount of the value of the property, what would be fair? Is there a number out there? And again, it's just property. There's nothing to it, no buildings. It's just the value of the land.
Right.
So what I'm trying to do is I've been online looking for, is there any ratio there? How do I figure out a value that I can go to the table with?
And so the two of you own this land together?
Together, half and half.
Half and half. And you want to figure out what it's worth?
Yeah, let's say hypothetically it's worth a certain amount. Let's say it's $200,000.
Right.
I don't know if it's that exactly, but what could I go to the table with? What is typically a fair amount?
How long have you guys been 50-50 partners in the land?
4 years.
And who did you guys put equal in?
Equal in, everything's equal. Yep.
Okay. Well, what would be half the value? Wouldn't that sound fair?
That's exactly what I think. Now, whether she'll think that, of course, is different. Half the value sounds reasonable to me. That was my major question. Is half out of the question? And
you're not married to this person.
I'm not married to her, and actually we have a great relationship, and there's no issues. It's just wanting to know what is.
Here's the easy answer. You ready?
Yeah.
The easy answer is you say, I'll give you half, and they say no. You say, okay, well, I'm going to go see Carl, and he's going to file this action called partition. And the judge is going to do one of two things. He's literally going to split the land into two separate parcels, or he's going to sell it and split it between us 50-50. So do you want the judge to put it at a judicial auction or cut it in half, or do you just want to agree to list it with a realtor and sell it, or do you want to let me buy you out for X or buy me out for X? But the judicial remedy is ultimately to sell it and split it, or literally physically split the land in half. And the concept of partition, like if you had 100 acres and it was all field and identical, the judge would very easily just break it in half. The ones we run into is when you have 100 acres with a house on the corner, how do you break that up? And those are the ones that usually get sold.
Yeah. This is just a small commercial property, and I actually didn't know that there was a we can go legally to split this.
You can force a split anytime. If I called you, and I got to go to break here, but yeah, it's called partition. So you have a remedy, and it would be split 50-50. So 50-50 is the ratio because that's the legal remedy. Now you might give her 52% just to save the headaches of a forced sale.
Actually, she's buying me out.
Right.
She's buying me out, and I would be happy to take 45%. I have a number in my mind, and if whatever it comes out. However percentage it comes out, I'm happy. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it. That's kind of what I needed to know.
All right, Dan, if you need anything else, you know where to get a hold of me, weekendappointment.com. Take care. I got to go to break.
See you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
540-0580. See you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. 540-0580. And, of course, if you need an attorney throughout the week and want to buy some property, need somebody to do the closing for you, maybe you want to get a divorce, maybe you got a personal injury case or you think you might have a personal injury case, my law office is always happy to help you. And, of course, you can go to weekendappointment.com to get our contact information. It's been great to meet so many of you who do listen to the show. I always enjoy to meet the listeners. And they all are surprised to see how ugly I really am in person because I look so good on the radio. David, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Hey, dude. How you doing, Carl?
Good.
Hey, quick question. Is there a time frame or statute limitation on a pet? I had a dog. It was a Siberian Husky we sent out to get groomed. I went to pick the dog up, and here the dog's hip was broke. It couldn't walk. Evidently, what I think happened is they went to let the dog down, and it wasn't an old dog, but when it jumped down, I think it broke its back. And I took it to the vet, and the vet said there's nothing they could do. I kept it for a couple of days, put a towel around its back end, and was hollering around, but it was just too heartbreaking. So I put the dog down and had to cremate and things, but it was like 6 months ago. I didn't know was something to pursue because I mean I had quite almost $1,000 wrapped up until everything was said and done.
I mean, the answer is you got a potential breach of contract action, so you'd have a 4-year statute of limitations on that. If you could think of a negligence action, and there might be a negligence action, although generally there's not negligence in business transactions. And again, dog's just chattel; it's not a person, so it's treated a little differently.
Right.
You'd have a 2-year statute of limitations. So the way I'm looking at it is you're at least 18 months from any statute of limitations that would apply.
Yeah, I mean, I had taken it right to the vet, and the vet, diagnosed that there was X-rays. I mean, so everything's pretty much documented. And it just took a while to get everything.
Well, yeah, the thing you got to prove though is negligence on their part, or that they didn't care. Because here's the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're babysitting my kid and he breaks his arm, it doesn't mean you did anything wrong. The real question is what happened. We fell off the swing. Is that your fault? He fell off the swing. It just depends.
Isn't it that always thing that, like, I mean, even if you had a child for that scenario and then he fell on your property and you were responsible, wouldn't you still be?
There has to be negligence or a wrongdoing, and in this case, it would have to be a breach of the contract. Obviously, you would understand that they would take good care of your dog, and if they allowed your dog to do something it shouldn't have, or dropped it, or beat it, or kicked it, or something, obviously you'd have a claim. The problem is, of course, how do you prove what happened? I mean, the breaking of a bone in a young dog, you might infer as the fact finder that something happened. Whereas in an older dog, the judge might say, "Well, I'm suspicious, but how do I know what happened?" And you, as the plaintiff, always have the duty to prove. The defendant's kind enough to say, "Yeah, I put him on the high table, and I wasn't paying attention, and he jumped down, and I really shouldn't have let that happen."
I know they're going to get into a peeing contest basically, because when I called down the first time and asked if the dog was done, there was a young girl answered and said the dog was sleeping, and I'm thinking the husky's not going to sleep when you get groomed. And then another lady had grabbed the phone, and she said, "Oh, the dog's ready." Never said nothing. And I go pick the dog up, and the dog's laying there.
Right.
Can't even walk, and so I took it to the vet, and like I said, his back was broke.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have a potential claim. Like I say, you got plenty of time to bring it.
Well, I could just do small claims for that, probably.
Yep.
All right, brother.
All right, take care.
Have fun on the macaroni and cheese, man.
Yeah, I will. It's going to be pretty good, I think.
You better say something for RJ. You're going to hear it. All right, bro. See you. Thanks again.
All right. I'm not sure. Well, here. We'll just ring the bell for RJ. Since we heard his name here. Got 2 Jims on the line, so everybody's going to get confused. But, all right, Jim number 1. Jim.
Hey, Carl. First, thanks for doing the show. Very much appreciated.
Well, thank you.
About 50 years ago, my grandmother purchased 8 acres of commercial property, and it would be equivalent, well, it's turned out to be equivalent to, imagine 8 acres of commercial property right along Carlisle Pike, right on the most attractive portion of Carlisle Pike.
Okay.
It's in another state, and when she passed in 2001, she willed it to my dad and his 4 siblings. So they're 20% owners in this thing, but it turns out that just before she passed, she had signed long-term leases with the advice of an attorney that she had been using for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But these leases are very much one-sided. I mean, there are options that are written very much in favor of the tenant, who is a large Ford dealership in the area, and also, lost my train of thought there. But yeah, they're very much in the favor of the tenant. And there are many other aspects of the leases which just look like maybe there was some collusion between the attorney and the Ford dealership, which again, it's another state, so nothing around here. But where would you suggest my folks go? Because these leases go out to 2050. Oh, and what I lost my train of thought of, they're leasing for about a third of what the market pulls in that area. So it really looks like my grandmother was represented but misrepresented.
Let me tell you first off, the interesting question always will be as to what extent did she follow the advice of her lawyer? Obviously, that's always an issue. We were just talking earlier about retaining files, and it'd be interesting. Maybe he wrote her a letter that said, "Here's a lease. I don't really recommend it because you should really change it," but she thought it was a good deal and didn't want to lose the deal, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
To what extent that there was a business decision made about what the price should be.
I would go along with that, except for the fact that the leases are written in such a way that if the leases continue, if the rates continue to be very favorable, the Ford dealership has them for another 5 years. If they're not favorable, the Ford dealership's obligated to 11 months, and then they walk.
Right.
There are a few other things that and I had a commercial agent, a couple of them look at them, and they just say, boy, these are really poorly written against your grandmother. But, what do my folks do at this point?
Well, and that's, if anything, and that's what I mean, the question is to have somebody else look at it and then have that what I would do, I mean, if you brought them to me, I would go to that, and I'm obviously it's out of state, but I would go to that lawyer and I would say, all right, tell me how this came to be. There's some concern that these are one-sided. And the lawyer may say, I'll tell you what, I got these, I looked them over, here's my letter to her explaining to her that I didn't think they were the greatest leases in the history of the world, and she should hold out for a better offer. And she went ahead and signed them. Well, then I guess there's nothing they can do. I mean, in other words, now if he actively drafted them,
he did.
Then that's a more interesting question as to why he drafted in the way he did, and then it would be interesting to see the correspondence. Again, though, if she's doing the business side of it, see, I can't control what clients do business-wise. Okay,
right.
And even if they're unsophisticated and they aren't business folks, and they're insisting that they only want to do something a certain way, at a certain point, I can say, well, I can help you do it, and I would recommend you maybe not do exactly what you want to do, but if that's what you want to do, here's how we're going to do it. But I would document it. So that would be the interesting question, is to the extent that there's some documentation. So just like a medical malpractice case, surprisingly or maybe not surprisingly, it's not surprising to me, but it may be surprising to some people, a lot of times a medical malpractice attorney will simply approach the doctor who is potentially going to sue.
Okay.
And say, Doc, I got to figure this out. And most of the time, the doctor's like, yeah, here's the file. Got any questions? Look it over, and I'll explain anything you want to know.
Okay. To wrap up and let you get to the next caller, what would you suggest at this point? My folks and the other parties don't have money to hire an attorney, but do attorneys work on contingency fees?
Well, yeah, but of course the big one on that one is so I sit down, I read the leases, I look over the file, I got 4 hours in, and I'm on a contingency fee where all I'm going to find out is that nothing bad happened. So usually in a case like that, we would tell people, here's what we'll do. We'll take the initial evaluation, we'll charge you X dollars for it per hour, and not more than X dollars.
Okay.
But if we think there's a case, then we'll come back to you and negotiate a contingency fee to work on invalidating the leases.
Okay.
So it's kind of a hybrid fee structure.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
Hey, thank you so much.
Hey, Jim, thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Okay. 540-0580. I'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Just enjoying a nice afternoon. And we're going to be joined again by Michael Parks here in a second.
Meeting is adjourned. Oh, I am sorry, sir. I didn't mean to overstep my bounds. You say that.
What?
Meeting is adjourned.
It is?
No, you say that, Governor.
What?
Meeting is adjourned.
It is?
Here, play around with this for a while.
Oh, thank you, Hetty.
Oh, boy, that was my good friend Hedley Lamar. Hey, Michael Parks.
Hey, Carl, how you doing, bud?
Good. You ever see the movie Blazing Saddles?
Oh, I love Blazing Saddles. I love the part where they put up the gate and they're trying to get in, and all of a sudden, I think it's Slim Pickens. He goes, "Somebody's going to have to go back and get a whole bunch of dimes."
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite movies.
Well,
man.
you know, well, the lawyer in there is Hedley Lamar, so he's kind of a conniver, but that's the whole plot of the movie, if people remember. But anyhow, what are you up to today? You're out at Sprint.
Yeah, I'm over at the Sprint on Walnut Street in Harrisburg, and they're having all kind of great deals going on. You know, the big deal now is with the 4G. Sprint is the only ones who have the 4G, and it's just absolutely incredible. I've been playing around with some of the phones, and really, if you think about it, the 4G delivers data 10 times faster than 3G, and it's available right now at Sprint. No matter what kind of phone you're looking for, there's all folks coming in buying a whole batch of phones, whether they're the smartphones, the BlackBerries, the Androids. I told you about the HTC Evo, so if you're like really into the state-of-the-art best phone out there with the biggest screen and the fastest coverage, you got to check out the HTC Evo. And if you're just looking for a basic phone, we had some older people coming in, WHP listeners, looking for just basic phones, just to make a connection. If you got kids, got texting, they got all kind of great plans. In fact, they got this deal going on right now where you can get unlimited calling to any mobile phone and also unlimited texting and unlimited web for $69.99 a month. So stop by at a Sprint location nearest you. Stop by and see us. We got tickets for Daughtry, all kind of WHP 580 giveaways. We'll be here till 4. and we'll talk to you in a bit. Back to you, Carl, on WHP.
All right, man. Send people out there to the Sprint store to hang out with you, brother.
All right, I'll see you soon.
All right, folks, you heard it. Michael Park's out there at the Sprint store on Walnut Street. Get out there, and 4G is really where it's at, too. I actually think I need to get me one of those 4G phones because that way I will be able to check my email even more often and quicker and download all the documents that my secretary seems to think that I have time to look at while I'm in court. George, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. Good afternoon. Carl, my question is regarding a timeshare owned by my mother. Dad passed away about 5 years ago.
Okay.
I haven't used a timeshare in 10 years. $45 a month maintenance fees. We've left them go into arrears starting beginning of this year. $271 still owed. At some point in the not too distant future, Mom's going to be going into a facility, into a home. She is a stroke survivor, a stroke victim, and early onset Alzheimer's is a sidebar issue. But neither myself nor any of my 4 siblings have any interest in this timeshare. Hasn't been used in ages. Nor do we have any interest in continuing to pay the maintenance fees.
Right.
On it. Is there? I did a little, I Googled a little bit, and I tried selling it several years ago. I came across a couple companies. One sibling just came across a company here very recently in the area trying to buy timeshares, and basically what it boils down to is if we pay them $2,100, they'll take it off our hands. Sidebar point again, timeshares are nothing but a big ripoff. They are not an investment. But anyhow, is there any way for us to clear this?
Well, the short answer is, I mean, she's in a contract, right?
Yes.
So theoretically, I mean, she can just do what she's doing, which is breach the contract, and ultimately they can sue her and get a judgment against her. There's no such thing as debtor's prison anymore, so there's no realistic remedy for them except to get that judgment and then execute against her. What I'm hearing from you, though, is that I'm just guessing that the bulk of her estate's probably going to be eaten up by her long-term care.
Correct.
So,
all of the estate will be eaten up by long-term care. So there's not going to be any money left even when she does go.
Right. And so she's essentially probably, for all intents and purposes, what we call judgment proof, meaning that you don't really care if somebody gets a judgment against you or not because there's nothing they can do with it.
Okay. My understanding from what I read on a couple of case law points in a couple of different states was that since it is considered property and it is, of course, it will be willed to her heirs, which are us, that we can be held responsible for to continue the contract. The estate would be responsible for it, but there's no requirement that you take anything out of the estate. Meaning, if I leave you my house and it has a mortgage on it, you don't have to take the house from my will. You can sell the house and pay off the mortgage, or if the mortgage is greater than the house, you can simply look at the bank and say, we're not even going to open an estate. And even if we did open an estate to get some things done, you're going to have to foreclose because we're not taking title to it. So, no, those debts should not fall on you. Although there's that crazy statute out there that says that a parent's debts could potentially be placed on a child in Pennsylvania, which we've talked about before in the show. And if you go to weekendappointment.com, I've got it posted there. Rarely see that applied, and it's pretty nebulous. And I haven't actually seen too many kids saddled with their parents' debts. I saw some inference in a couple cases relating to heirs signing off on something regarding IRS forms, anything of that nature, but nobody gave any specifics as far as what this was about.
Yeah, no, and I don't know what that would be referring to or not. But as a general rule, just because you're the heir to an estate, you don't actually get the debts of the estate. The estate settles up its debts and its assets, and if the debts exceed the assets, then there's a list of priorities on how the debts are paid, and then that's the end of it. The heirs don't assume the debts of who left them.
So as when she does eventually pass, if there would happen to be any money left in the estate is responsible for paying any debts, including the
timeshare,
up until the point that the funds are exhausted. And then we bear no further burden of responsibility. Or I should say, technically, that's our concern.
Right.
It seems as though we would still bear a burden of responsibility because will be the heirs to that part of her estate.
Well, no, because what happens is even if she were to leave property to you or try to pass it down, if it has to be sold or whatever the property is, has to be liquidated to pay off the debts in the order of priority. So the first thing paid is the tax, or the estate tax, if there's any net. The next thing paid is the administrative costs, and the next thing paid is the undertaker. And then if there's anything left over, it goes to the residual clause of the will. But the point being is, in those cases, what we do a lot of times, if the estate's completely upside down, we tell you not to open it. In fact, I sometimes open estates for Department of Public Welfare so that they can get assets out of an estate because it is upside down, but they have a priority lien because of the cost of the Medicaid that they've dispersed.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to take it from basically what you're saying that we have little to worry about here.
That's my general gist. Now, if anybody out there ever had an experience and they want to share it with us, go to weekendappointment.com and let us know. But my general position on a case like this is don't worry about it, don't need to do anything, and don't throw your own good money after it.
Exactly. My concern, or our concern in general. Excellent. Carl, thank you very much for all your time.
All right, George, thank you very much.
Have a great afternoon.
All right, you too. 540-0580. Jim, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Yes, Carl. Good to hear your day's going well.
Hey, yeah, and thank you for holding for so long.
Oh, you bet. Hey, I have a question on a paid-up mortgage.
Yeah.
Corresponded with the mortgage holder in April, sent them a check on the 26th of April. They received it on the 29th. I received my escrow payment from them on May 18th. Haven't heard anything from anybody since.
They haven't satisfied it yet?
No, I haven't received anything from anyone. And my question is, should I have received something, and from whom?
Well, Jim, what should have happened is if you have a mortgage, it should be marked satisfied at the courthouse. And if they haven't done that, you can make a demand of them. And if they don't satisfy it in a timely fashion, the statute allows you to collect a lot of money back from them. So I would strongly urge you to have somebody look into that for you.
Where do we start? At the courthouse or at the mortgage?
I would go to the courthouse first.
Okay.
And I would see if they've satisfied it, and then we could check the statute. Look me up on Weekend Appointment, Jim. I'd be happy to help you out with it.
Okay.
Folks, there's the music. I got to go. Well, don't forget to go to weekendappointment.com, post your legal questions, get in contact with me if you need a lawyer throughout the week. You know, we do a little of everything. Bob Durgan calls me criminal defense lawyer, but it's pretty much a general practice. And if we don't do it, we'll put you in touch with somebody who can help. So don't forget to call me in my office or go to weekendappointment.com. I'll see you next Saturday.